just how deep does the rabbit hole go when it comes to sign stealing? And I'm not just talking about Michigan football. I'm talking about in general. And I'm also talking about some things that are potentially illicit. I have been on the phone probably for about 15 hours with people you know, people you might not know, all of the above, multiple people. I finally got some really, really detailed information. We're going to talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Wednesday. We are back in doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. So I have been on a fact-finding mission, probably more so than I've ever been on the job. I have been on the phone just with so many people. It's been relentless. It was like a respite to go to a press conference yesterday. And now I feel like I have something that I can share with you about just kind of how deep the rabbit hole goes to some degree. I'm just going to go right into it. We're just going to go ahead and start it up with, I actually spoke to a Big Ten source who gave me a quote that this is not your, if other people are out there sharing anonymous quotes and these ESPN and SI and Yahoo articles. I don't think Yahoo had any, but those other ones did. I can too. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So here is what I learned. Quote, every Sunday, coaches and support staff with mutual connections throughout the conference contact each other to trade not just schematic notes, but also to trade signals. Some of the top teams who consistently trade signals and have very accurate information on common opponents are Michigan, Rutgers, Ohio State, Indiana, and Purdue. Other teams who are decent at it and would always look to trade are Illinois, Northwestern, Maryland, Minnesota, and Penn State. Wisconsin was oblivious to it, but is likely no longer with the new staff. Michigan State, Iowa, and Nebraska appear to be oblivious and out of the loop. So this is from one person who is speaking anonymously. It's a Big Ten source that told me this. And as we kind of expounded upon things here, it was very clear. There's a tier 1, a tier 2, a tier 2B essentially, and then like a tier Z, right? And obviously we keep on hearing all these things about Michigan from the last several days, right? And sign stealing, how illegal is what Michigan did, how not illegal it might be. Is it a gray area? We are obviously firmly in the belief that it is a gray area from everything that I have heard over the course of the last, I mean, even before this all started, right? Like it's so I think that that's interesting, especially when you look at some of the other teams involved. Obviously, there's one other kind of tier 1 team, and that's Ohio State, other than Michigan. Then you've got the tier 2 teams, and they kind of also vary in their ability to be, pretty good. I think it's really funny when you hear that Michigan State, Iowa, and Nebraska are not at all involved in that whatsoever, right? Like that's kind of kind of funny, honestly, in a way, because like we've been kind of covering just how deep sign stealing goes, but this is more than just sign stealing, right? This is trading, and there's all these kinds of different things that go along with it. And obviously Michigan is doing a pretty good job of it, right? That's why Michigan is the center of college football at the moment. It's because of the Connor Stalions drama that's currently continuously unfolding, seemingly with something new every day. But this is like not just like something it's hiding in the shadows when it comes to the fandom, right? But when it comes to the actual what's happening, behind the scenes, this is a well-known network, right? This isn't like just like, oh, okay, there's maybe there's someone. I mean, no, this is an established network. This is well-known of coaches, or I don't know exactly what they are that trade these things. What I think is particularly interesting is not just the teams that are named, but also the idea that when you're reading these things from ESPN that says like, hey, 12 Big Ten teams have confirmed all of these shenanigans going on. I mean, clearly they're not so concerned with Michigan sign stealing that they aren't willing to not trade. They're not willing to stop the sign stealing. And they're also potentially benefactors of it, right? If Michigan's doing something illicit and if it does actually help, whether it's actually illegal, whether it's a gray area, whatever it might be, the Michigan's not actually like blackballed from this, right? So I think that's interesting as well. Each team, this is the other note I wrote down from my conversation. Each team knows who each team's person is, and they have their phone number. So this is a pretty common practice, right? And clearly, I think that this also suggests, like I said just a moment ago, that teams aren't necessarily nearly as afraid of Michigan as they are kind of publicly proclaiming, or I should say anonymously proclaiming. I think that gives a lot of credence to this being kind of like, hey, Michigan's just annihilating everything in its path. What can we do in order to kind of keep Michigan from achieving its goals, right? And I understand. We're going to talk in segment 2 about Jim Stapleton, John U. Bacon. It's been talked about a bit. John U. Bacon talked about Jim Stapleton on Columbus radio today. We're gonna go into his quote, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit too. So is the call coming from inside the house? It might be a little bit. Absolutely might be, but you still have to kind of piece things together the way all of this has been working, right? Especially when you look at what happened last night, right? You have Ohio State sources posting the same thing at the same time as ESPN, and on something that actually wasn't even illegal, which was that there were tickets purchased for SEC championship game and other teams that aren't on Michigan's schedule, right? Those are games that Jim Harbaugh could buy tickets to and go and sit in the stands and could do whatever he wants. He can have, if they allow a camera with a certain amount of lens, he can sit out there with a camcorder and actually record it. So I think with that in mind, I think what this tells me more than anything is that this practice is a heck of a lot more prevalent. Like, do I know yet? Like if people are doing the exact same thing that Connor Stalions is accused of doing? I don't yet. I am working on it. Certainly there are rumors out there. And I say that as far as in the Big Ten, right? Because this is a Big Ten person that I spoke to. So it will be interesting to see how this continues to unfold. And I'm going to keep digging. I'm just going to keep trying to find out more here, right? Because there's a lot of people clutching their pearls. Some of it is at the alleged illegality to this, but some of it honestly is just the sign stealing. That's what, like you saw all the stuff that erupted on social media yesterday throughout the course of the day is just absolutely absurd. And it's for as many people say, like, listen, we're not concerned about the sign stealing, but this is pretty egregious. Like, well, you don't know random play in the first quarter, whether or not that was a result of sign stealing or not, especially because Ohio State did have success on it, right? Just because Michigan called a blitz when they decided to change formations, it means absolutely nothing. It's just absolutely insane that this is the type of conversation we're having. So I'm trying to bring a little bit of reason to this, trying to help you all understand that this is not, especially if you're someone who is in the Michigan, you're a Michigan fan watching or listening. I want to help you understand, like, okay, Michigan's not alone, at least not completely. If you're another fan, you're going to hate what I just said, but it's also true from what I've been able to gather. And I spoke to another former Big Ten. This one here that I'm speaking of now is a former Big Ten person. They had essentially confirmed what was said here. So they didn't tell me this outright, but they confirmed it. So take that for what you will. We're going to keep digging. Let's get into Jim Stapleton and what he is alleged to be by John U. Bacon. I don't want to say alleged to be, but we'll talk about Jim Stapleton's potential role in all this. And then we're going to talk about ramifications for Jim Harbaugh. I've had a lot of friends text me, what does this mean for Jim Harbaugh? We're going to get into all of that. And we're going to do that here in just a moment. Before we do, listen, there are so many bad things going on in the world that don't center around Michigan football. That includes unrest in the Middle East. There've been the fires in Hawaii. How quickly we forget about the devastation in Maui. There's been earthquakes in Turkey. There's all kinds of things. You never know when natural disaster or war or any of that stuff is going to strike. So not only can that lead to supply chain shortages for medications and the inability to get medications in a timely manner, it can certainly just make the world be in upheaval. And guess what? The Jace case is your solution. It's a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add life-saving medications to your unique needs. Now, here's the new thing. Ivermectin is one of those things that is being added to the Jace case. Jace is continually working to expand their medication offerings. In those recent efforts, they have added ivermectin as an option in the Jace case. Jace Medical now also offers customizability to your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. So you can choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. So buy a gift card for your family or your loved ones so that they can get a Jace case of their own. I got one for Sarah. Sarah now has medications for her and the boys just in case something happens. So go to jacemedical.com, enter the code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. All right, before we move on, listen, tomorrow, NFL action. So snap into the NFL action, get into the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $200 in bets, bonus bets, win or lose. So you don't have to worry too much about your own money. You know what? NFL action can be kind of unpredictable. You saw that last week with the Lions-Ravens after how the Lions looked for the first 6 weeks of the season. But go ahead and place that bet on the team. And if you lose, guess what? You've got other options. You get $200 more. So the app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including overs, unders, player props, spreads, and you get your money, your withdrawals instantly. That's how cool it is. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so we're continuing to stay heavy on all of this, right? Like, this is just continuing to be just an absolute mess. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is a dumpster fire, more so than it usually is. I tend to be on political Twitter. My For You is now all sports. It's an absolute dumpster fire. And now there are certainly Ohio State circles that are claiming vindication based off of this. Listen, I'm here to tell you, it does not equal vindication. Right? Ohio State is involved, to my knowledge, in some degree. I don't know much more than that, but I've spoken to multiple people that say this is partially a narrative, right? Like, Michigan's the king of the mountaintop. That's kind of what I was alluding to before. Other teams want to knock them down, kind of not recognizing, like, hey, if we get to the mountaintop and we get caught for something, then teams are going to knock us down, right? But I do feel like, not to be Charlie Day at the cork board with the red yarn and the tacks and everything like that. But I mean, it's kind of clear when you look at kind of the signs of how this is going, exactly what it is that is happening. But there are people alluded to be in the mix here that are potentially helping drive this, that are from the Michigan side to some degree. You see a lot of speculation. But one person that is really good at going beyond speculation, is John U. Bacon, who's obviously written several books on Michigan football, been embedded in the program multiple times. He's as smart as anyone that I've ever come across. I obviously know John, but when he says something, he's one of the people, when he says something, I sit up and listen, right? And this is not new, right? There was an MGO blog post that was up a couple days ago. I've seen this name bandied about on message boards for the last at least half year. And John U. Bacon is probably the most prominent voice to go kind of public, not behind a paywall, and say a little bit more. So I'm going to actually read you the quote. He appeared on 97.1 The Fans show, The Morning Juice, in Columbus, Ohio. And there's good people over there, by the way. I've been on that channel before. you'll like that the time that I went on that channel was the morning of the game in 2021. They thought I was crazy saying Michigan had a chance. Anyway, here's what John U. Bacon said. It depends exactly on who you're talking to. The catch is that as far as what the reality is going to be, we don't know what reality is yet. You've got to be smart about that because they're going to get leaked like crazy from the NCAA. Watch a guy named Jim Stapleton. Jim Stapleton is a Michigan alum who blackballed Harbaugh when he was trying out for the Vikings because Jim was on the board, as in Jim Stapleton, of the board of the Minnesota Vikings. Now got himself onto the NCAA infractions committee, and he hates Jim Harbaugh. It doesn't matter who the source is, if it's right or wrong. If Michigan did it, they'll pay a price. That's not the point. You can't kill the messenger. But as far as leaking goes, I would guarantee that's where it's coming from. And Michigan's got the gag order. So in the meantime, what you get is a flood of negative information on Michigan, obviously. Then it does not go back the other way. So we'll see what happens. The catch to what's going to happen next, man, your guess is as good as mine. And maybe no one's guess is very good. Because we're talking about the NCAA. There's no, you call them tattoos. There's no predicting what's going to matter and what isn't because you've seen big things not matter. I'm looking at Kansas basketball, and it seems small things matter a lot. You just never know. So obviously that also sheds light a little bit into what's going to happen, right? Like we'll talk a little bit about Jim Harbaugh and all that kind of stuff here on the tail end. But as far as the Jim Stapleton of it all, like that's a name I've heard bandied about for a while now. Like I said, he does seem to have a vendetta against Michigan. Sorry, not against Michigan, against Jim Harbaugh in particular. I know that seems crazy to you, Michigan fan, who's cheering 2 straight years of Big Ten supremacy. But sometimes things just go that way, right? Like you get people who have vendettas, right? Rich Rod didn't even get a chance, for instance, to do anything, right? He hadn't even played a game yet, and suddenly he was being railroaded by a bunch of people who love Michigan. There's a lot of people that harbor bitterness, which is, that's biblically, for instance, we are called to forgiveness, and that is not we aren't to be bitter. And you know how many negative, evil things can be born of bitterness, and this seems to be a person who feels that way. I did a quick skim of the MGO blog. I think I'm probably bringing it up real fast. I think I don't still have it up, but history, I'm sure I can bring it up pretty quickly. So even you, Brutus, who's a long time MGO blog board and diary poster, he did a Meet Jim Stapleton piece on MGO blog. I have to point that out, because I used to be a very frequently all day, every day on MGO blog. Even you, Brutus, is one that I remember fondly from the years as being a really good poster. I'm talking back in 2010, right? Like he's been around that long. So here's a little bit more background according to this. So this is someone else's background. I haven't confirmed this. Just take it for what you will. But I'm trying to add some color to the John U. Bacon quote. Right, John U. Bacon tweeted this, so that kind of feels like, okay, he's dug into this a little bit more. So as the editor's note says, they took it down initially because they feared what the outcome would be from angry Michigan fans given a boogeyman to pin the anger on. It's not a reflection on the OP who linked all the information he shared, all that, whatever. And he says, I do not condone, this is from Seth, I don't defend or condone Stapleton's actions, but I do recognize he is probably acting on what he thinks is Michigan's best interest. So know that there's more to this, but okay. So this was a quote that ended up on here from someone else. It says, I do handyman type of work for a commercial property management company in Ann Arbor. We have 6 big properties on Main Street. Lots of our tenants are big local companies you'd know. One tenant tells me a guy he does business with is a lawyer who's closely connected to Michigan athletics and apparently despises Harbaugh. He apparently was a big Ron English advocate back in 2014 during the coaching search. I kid you not. He was bitter that Michigan didn't go with his guy and has never let go of that bitterness. Not long ago, he got himself onto the infractions committee at the NCAA, and he has a major pull right now with respect to their investigations. And it was shortly thereafter that Cheeseburger's scandal erupted. So there's that. Big Hoke guy, by the way. One fan did not agree after Michigan's 26-10 loss to Utah that shook Blue Nation again. Big Michigan booster and current Eastern Michigan University region, Jim Stapleton accused me of falling off a truck and bumping my head. So he's currently not in Eastern Michigan region. Of course, he's on the NCAA infractions committee. Is he the one that's behind all of this? It's certainly possible. Is he the one that is leaking things to Pete Thamel? It is also very possible. But you have to keep in mind that when you have a big anonymous Big Ten coach or administrator, whoever it is, also slinging mud at Michigan. We talked about all that in the first part. Slinging mud at Michigan, unchecked, uncritically posted, as that's a fact, right? Then you get into you understand that this is also being pushed by Ohio State, because it's almost certainly Ohio State that is the one, especially once we learned that Greg Schiano clarified his halftime statements and also note that they huddled all game. So it kind of tells you a little bit that, hey, Michigan, he's not complaining about Michigan stealing signals or anything like that. So this is a double-edged sword. This is a multi-pronged attack, right? This is political at this point. It doesn't take much to understand that this is political. Because if it is starting with someone who doesn't like Jim Harbaugh, and then you can reel in Ohio State, you can get James Franklin to say, play Pollyanna and kind of go out there and say, yeah, Michigan was blowing up these plays that a bunch of Twitter users were able to prove didn't exist, by the way. I haven't done my own homework on that, so credit to those who did. Then suddenly, like, you understand kind of what's happening. And when you see the trickling out of information, right? It goes from Michigan's doing something illegal. Here's the person who's doing something illegal. Here's what they ended up doing. Here's the things that they did that were definitely 100% not illegal, but we're not going to tell you that. We're just going to try to make this seem really bad. And then you have a character assassination piece, and all of this stuff just kind of comes out in one fell swoop, like every single day, with the exception of game day and the following day. That tells you exactly what's going on here, right? Now, again, not to be Charlie Day with the string and whatever. And I agree. We don't know right now exactly what's, can something else come out that I don't know about that is 100% within the realm of possibility. But at the same time, we know that whatever happened, everything that's being alleged lives within a gray area. It all depends on your interpretation of the rules. If you are a Michigan fan, you look at it and say, not illegal. If you are a fan of Ohio State, you're not going to care about any kind of, like, that's not in the rules here. This is not a rule that was broken. I'm just going to go ahead and declare it as illegal, right? As soon as someone says, like, Michigan cheated, you're on board. So that kind of tells you, like, about this narrative, right? Because keeping in mind, the NCAA has yet to, not only has the NCAA not charged Michigan with anything, they haven't dropped that COI yet for this. They haven't even done it yet for Burgergate. Jim Harbaugh has served a 3-game suspension for something that has not even been said that, hey, we are fully actually investigating this. So that's where you're at. All right, we've only got a couple of minutes left. What does this mean for Jim Harbaugh? I think that's important that we get to that. We're going to do that here in just a moment. Before we do, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And my ride or die wasn't alive a couple days ago. And that's where eBay Motors comes in. They can fix my water pump for me, right? They have everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. I also use them to help repair Sarah's car. Actually, we didn't actually do it, but I ordered a part, and I think I ordered a part, and we never fixed it for her old car. Anyway, with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All All right, so let's finish out here. What does this all mean for Jim Harbaugh? I think John U. Bacon did a really good job of kind of saying, like, yeah, we don't know. Do I feel better about everything knowing what I know? Yes, I do. But that doesn't mean anything, really, because the NCAA is judge, jury, executioner, right? They do not have to abide by, innocent until proven guilty. They can declare you guilty with zero evidence, right? And absolutely, when it comes to whether or not Jim Harbaugh knew what was going on, that's going to be a hard thing to necessarily prove unless that paper trail ends up being a heck of a lot deeper than I initially thought, right? And it is certainly possible, it's plausible to some degree, that they will bring the hammer down regardless. I would add that if Jim Stapleton is doing what he thinks is best for the Michigan program, and his idea of what's best for the Michigan program is to take Stretchgate and make it look like nothing, right? Because that wasn't nothing. I mean, it was nothing in terms of the infraction, but it was an infraction, and Michigan got hit, and Dave Brandon, the only thing that he really did well as an AD was kind of deftly handle that at the beginning, and he was hailed as a liberator, right? There are people who have in their minds what the best thing is for Michigan. And some of that, it might not be what you think is best for Michigan or what is actually best for Michigan. I think what's best for Michigan is that Jim Harbaugh remains the head coach at the university. What other people think clearly might be something different. And whether that's someone in the Michigan administration, right? Because I would have expected if none of this happened, Jim Harbaugh's contract would have been extended. Again, get Charlie Day, corkboard, yarn, the timing, right? Hey, this is about to happen. Nuke dropped, right? And Michigan can't defend itself, right? Like, I know people say, oh, they put out a statement. That's not defending itself. They can't just be like, hey, everybody, here's what we know. Look at it. They can't do that. So you have people in the NCAA who have it out for Michigan. That's pretty clear one way or the other, right? When there's other people out there who are there's other people out there who are clearly doing a heck of a lot worse, right? No one cared that Georgia was out there buying players before NIL, right? Getting just insane amount of talent. No one cared. I didn't even really care, right? Like it was happening. No one cared. The Bagman article, no one cared. Yet, no one cared about sign stealing either, right? I've still got this Bruce Feldman article up on my computer from July 2nd, 2018, right? A veteran college football coach who has worked in almost every Power 5 conference is sitting down for a late lunch. This is typically a moment where he would gush about his players, but on this afternoon, in a rare instance, he is gushing about another coach. The level of espionage in this sport is insane, and he's the best I've ever seen, he said as he lowered his voice. You go from giving up 12 and 14-yard chunks to plays of negative 2 yards. He's amazing. He is a signal stealer. Like, this is from 5+ years ago. No one cared. No one cared. Now suddenly everyone cares. That's because everyone cares about a name. That name is Jim Harbaugh. He's still the most polarizing coach in college football. Doesn't matter if Deion Sanders became the new hotness, right? It's still Jim Harbaugh. That's become increasingly evident. So what's going to happen? I don't know. But I've been asked, will Jim Harbaugh be the coach next year? For the first time in forever, I can tell you, I don't know. And that's a sad state of affairs, to be honest. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We will be back on Thursday, almost assuredly. I'm not sure about what, but we will be. When I say I'm not sure about what, it's not from a lack of planning. We get breaking news literally every day. So we're just going to tackle whatever that is and go from there. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. Peace.